Hi guys, I'm Jessica and this is Yoga for Beginners. Today we are going to talk about the 8 limbs of yoga. Did you know that yoga is more than just the poses that you see? Yeah, there's a whole lot more to it. In fact, the poses are just the tip of the iceberg. So let's get into it. If you like this video, make sure you give it some love by hitting that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you can keep getting free yoga content and you can keep enjoying my free yoga classes every single Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time beginner, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time intermediate. And the more subscribers I get, the easier it is for me to offer you free classes, and I can even put some more on the schedule. So make sure that you subscribe right now. So what do I have with me here today? I have my beautiful drawing of the 8 limbs of yoga. Now, I'm sorry that it's not a gorgeous piece of artwork that you were probably expecting, but this is the best I can do. I can kind of draw circles, so let's just get into that. Anyway, the 8 limbs of yoga creates your entire yoga practice. So like I was saying, the poses that we do, which are actually called asana, are only one part of that 8-limbed practice. So if you are only doing just the yoga poses, you're not really doing much of yoga at all. You're just doing the teeniest little bit of it. So let's begin by breaking down each of the 8 limbs. The very first 2 limbs, the yamas and the niyamas, these are like our 10 commandments of yoga. So the yamas are our moral controls, and the niyamas are our moral observances. So our moral controls are things like ahimsa, which means non-harming, asteya, which means non-stealing, satya, which means truthfulness, aparigraha, which means not holding on to things, not coveting things, and brahmacharya, which means resisting temptation. So those are the 5 things that we don't want to do. So that's a whole other discussion for another day. And if you want to pick up a really great book on this, I will post a link in the description. It's called The Yamas and the Niyamas by Deborah Adeli. And I'm not sure if I'm not pronouncing that right, but it is a wonderful book. It is such an easy read. And I recommend that to literally every single person that asks me about yoga. It is really a great book. It has changed the way I think and do things. So the next portion is the niyamas. So these are the 5 things that we want to do in yoga. The first one is santosha, which means contentment. The second one is tapas, which means austerity or heat or drive. That's your passion to do good, to do things. There's also saucha, which means purity, cleanliness. Ishvara pranadhana, which means to surrender. So we want to surrender to a higher power. And then finally, svadhyaya, which is self-study, which can be through our yoga practice and also through the sacred texts written by the yoga sages. So things like the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. I will also put a link of that book in the description. It's an awesome book. That one's a little bit more yoga than the yamas and the niyamas. And things like the Vedas and, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, these are, some ancient yoga books that we don't need to get into today. But anyway, these are the first 2 limbs. So before you even step onto your mat, you should be practicing these 2 limbs. And I'm gonna make another video on that. That's a really kind of involved topic. These are the things that you wanna do before you even step onto your yoga mat. So we want to prepare the mind before we prepare the body. So the mind kind of prepares the body. The next thing is pranayama. This is number 3. Pranayama is breathing. Prana means life force energy. Yama means control. So we are controlling that life force energy. So before you even start doing your poses, you want to learn how to do your yoga breathing. Number 4 is asana, or the yoga poses. Now let me just back up for a second here and explain what Sanskrit is. Yoga was created back in a time where they spoke a language called Sanskrit. It is the most ancient language in the world. So even Latin comes from Sanskrit. And every syllable in Sanskrit is meant to reverberate and create a different energy and affect a certain energy center in the body. So every single sound that you're making in Sanskrit is sacred, and it has a meaning, and it actually has an effect. So that's why we still use these Sanskrit words today. And it's not to be fancy or to show off our yoga knowledge. It actually has a meaning. So when we are doing a yoga pose, an asana, every single yoga pose will end in the word asana. So for instance, mountain pose is tadasana. Forward fold is uttanasana. Chair pose is utkatasana. So everything ends in asana. And that just means, mountain pose, chair pose, seated pose. So everything is asana. So you would think that this would be the most important part of yoga because that's what you see, but it really is only a small part of it. So let's move on to number 5. This is pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of senses. So there's lots of outside distractions to our practice. Now, every single thought that you have in your mind is a reaction to some sort of outside stimuli. When you're smelling something, you think of a smell. When you hear something, you think of what that sound means. When you see something, you think of what that means to you, what you see. So every single thought that you have takes you away from your practice just a little bit. So in yoga, we want to withdraw our senses so we are just focused on our inner consciousness. So this is how we get to a state of meditation. We have to be able to do all of these 4 things, our yamas and niyamas, our pranayama, our asana, to be able to get to this withdrawal of senses state. Now, once we reach this withdrawal of senses, then we can start to come into dharana, which is concentration. So we can really start to calm and set the mind into a state of meditation. And then once we're able to do that, we move on to our state of meditation, which is dhyana meditation. So this is where we are actually tapping into that deep inner consciousness of ourselves. And then we finally, once we are able to reach that, we reach the 8th limb, which is samadhi, enlightenment. Very few people have gotten to this, but this is all that we are doing to reach that. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing yoga, yoga was created about 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. We're not really sure. The real ancient texts have been kind of eaten away by time, and then some of them have actually been destroyed. So we think that it was about 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. When yoga first started, there were only 15 poses. And all those poses were there for was to be able to have somebody sit in Padmasana, which is lotus pose, and be able to meditate for days or weeks or months or years. So if your body is not flexible, if your mind is not flexible and conditioned for this, there's no way that you can sit in meditation. That's all yoga is. It's to prepare the body to sit in meditation. I know. But anyway, this is your 8-limbed path. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what questions you have. Go ahead, post in the comments, and let's start a discussion on it. I love talking about this stuff. This is kind of my jam, so please ask me some questions. And guys, if you like this video, make sure that you give it that thumbs up, and please, please, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because if you don't, you're gonna miss out on all of this free, awesome yoga content and yoga classes. And hit that little bell next to the subscribe button so you can get notified when I post new content. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I am so grateful that you were here. Namaste.